this assignment where you're going to be taking an old image, which just happens to be this image here. I'll send this image out to you, but if you have an image that is more near and dear to your heart for whatever reason, you're welcome to work on that image as long as it's a comparable image. So what you're going to be doing with this assignment, you're going to be getting all of these files sent to you in Photoshop. All right. So these will be sent directly to your desktop, and the files that you'll have, one will be that old image that you saw, all right, of this gentleman. All right. The other image that you'll have will be this large paper clip, and then you'll have these two smaller paper clips, as well as this background. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking this image, taking it through 3 different steps, placing that image on the background, and then pinning it to the background as if it were on a whiteboard or something like that. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at this image. Now, some of the tools in Photoshop that we have not yet discussed are tools that can be utilized to either clone, repair, or copy data from another spot on an image. So this could be useful for the assignment you're working on right now, where you have some of the areas on the tree bark that is, messed up or whatever it might be. You could actually utilize this tool to override some of the content on that tree. All right, this can be used for any other facet. So if you have birds flying in the sky and you want to take them out of the sky for whatever reason, you could utilize these tools. The tools that we're talking about are the clone stamp tool and the healing brush tool, as well as the spot healing brush tool. All right, these tools work by mimicking certain areas, all right, and placing that content, which is those pixels, in a specific area. Now, it can be very helpful, but you also have to understand that it can be very kind of used inappropriately if you don't control it. All right. So in other words, what I could do is, if I'm not careful and I clone the wrong spot, I could place content on my image where content should not be placed. All right. So in this particular case, we're going to be cloning specific data around this area to cover up other areas. Now, how we go about doing that? On your keyboard, if you hold the Alt key, you'll notice that my cursor turns to this bullseye. All right. So you see right now it's that circle. When I hit Alt, it goes to this bullseye. All right. If I hold Alt and click, it selects that specific area of content. When I move this, I can simply click and it covers that area. Now, the best bet is to apply content from as close to the specific area that you're covering as possible. So I'm going to zoom in on his shoulder here. I'm going to go back to my clone stamp tool, and I'm going to select right here on the combination between the gray and the black. That way when I move up here, you see it has that combination of gray and black. I'm just mimicking that line. You don't want to bring that line down like this, all right, because it'll look obvious then. But if you bring that line of pixels somewhere around there, when I zoom back out, you can see that cover up looks pretty good. Okay, so what we can do is, like I said, select the area that we want to cover, and work around that area. If you have a more delicate image where maybe he's got a crack across his face, it becomes more complicated because you're trying to match stuff around his face. We come into the tie here, same concept. If I look at my brush, I'm going to look at my brush size. It's the same thing as any of your other brushes. Hardness is, basically think about hardness as opacity. So how hard are the edges going to be, and how easy you're going to be able to see it. Is it going to be feathered in a little bit like we did with the refine edge, all right, down here, or is it going to be all the way up? Somewhere in like the middle, 60, 70 is a good spot to start. And then size is the number of pixels that you're cloning. So if I'm only trying to copy a little bit of an area, I can turn my size down, turn my hardness down, and then I can go ahead and, let's redo that, hardness down, size down, try to copy things like his tie here which has some issues on it. All right, zoom back out. You can see, you know, we kind of clean up his tie a little bit there. On his face, same concept. You can go ahead and work within those areas. The spot brush and patch tool and so forth. Patch tool just utilizes like pixels around it. So I think if we circle it, it kind of utilizes, or patch tool, excuse me, patch tool, you could place a patch over top of it. So we don't want to use that in that particular case. If we had a specific pattern we wanted to place over top of the patch, we could do that. Healing brush and spot healing brush, same concept, but they kind of utilize the pixels around them. So you just kind of click and it tries to read the pixels around it. Can be useful sometimes, other times not so accurate. You can also, with the spot healing brush, do the same thing with the Alt to go ahead and select the pixels that you want to utilize. So if I click Alt, select the area, it kind of does its best to blend that area in. All right, and just like the word says, it's trying to heal it. So we have the spot healing, works to heal that. All right. Clone stamp doesn't look at the pixels around it, it just looks at the pixels that you steal. All right. So those tools are all available for you to go ahead and fix this up. So I'm going to go ahead and I would touch this complete image up completely, save it as another one. So I'm going to save this as, let's call it Kozlowski _ touched _ image. Okay. I'll put that to my desktop, save that. Okay. Now, the next thing you're going to be doing is adding some color to this black and white photo. All right. This is going to help you with selection tools. It's also going to help you with how we can take a black and white photo, add some color. Now, anytime that people colorize this image and it looks very superficial, it's done because people have added too much color or have brought the hue and the saturation out way too much. This is a black and white old photo. You have to be very delicate when adding color. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my image mode from grayscale to RGB color. Right now it's just a black and white photo. I'll change it to RGB color. And then what I can do is use one of my selection tools, either the magnetic lasso, you could try the magnetic lasso, but I'm going to try, excuse me, the magic wand. I'm going to use the magnetic lasso. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select his shirt here. So I'm going to click and kind of just move along this line. And I probably should have turned my feathering up slightly. All right, but you guys will get the concept. So I'll select my white, which is just his undershirt here. We'll come back and get his tie and stuff later. Oops. And if I click a area that's falls out of place, you see this last placement that I just placed, it dropped that dot. What I can do is hit the delete key. It will actually delete that dot and then I can back up. If I place a dot where I don't want it, delete key will back that up and I can go ahead and click and continue to move along on his shirt collar. And after you have that whole selection done, you'll see you'll get your marching ants, which is the selection tool kind of, the lines are marching there. Now what I can do is I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Apply Color, if I can find it. Hue and Saturation, that'll work too. Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Now under the Hue and Saturation, we can check this box called Colorize. It throws a color to it. And you go ahead and select a hue that you want. Your saturation is how much color you're throwing to it. So obviously, like I said, if you fill this saturation up, it's going to look very unrealistic. You're applying light, light, light colors. All right. So maybe we're going to say he's got a greenish hue shirt on, or I don't know. Depends on what color scheme you want to go with. Orangish color. He was very vibrant. Turn the saturation down. We're just throwing a little bit of color. This has to do with the question was, why is it not showing up here? This has to do with the shading. It was very light to begin with here. It is showing up, but because there was so much light in that area, it's very, very faint. So it comes in as like a light pink as opposed to a darker orange. It just has to do with the light source on this image. So that's what's interesting, is when you select and try to colorize, it will look at the tonalities that already exist and base its colorization off that tonalities. Now, some of the most difficult things to colorize are going to be hair and skin. Okay? So if you take a look, when I go to select this, I'm going to do a quick selection just for sake of your time. But you'll see over on the right-hand side where it already exists that it's pretty light, where the light is kind of falling off already. That's going to be the lightest part of the colorization once again. All right? And it becomes difficult to kind of blend the colors, because what you'll have is you'll have his skin color and you'll have his hair color, and you don't want him looking like Ronald McDonald with, you know, dyed hair up there. All right? So we're going to hit Image, Adjust, Hue and Saturation, Colorize. All right? We don't want him looking like he's been tanning his whole life. So we'll find a hue that works, and then you're going to really back your saturation down. All right, and it's hard to see from your screen, but you're welcome to come take a look at mine then. He's starting to look like he has color applied in this photo. All right, now what I would do is File, Save As. We're saving another version. Don't just save. I'm going to call this Kozlowski Colored Image. So I've touched imaged. I'll have my original. Okay, because on your background, you're going to be placing all three of these images. All right, so it's important you save 3 different versions. On my background, I want this thing to look a little more realistic, so I'm going to turn my layers on by going to Window, Layers, and on my layers, I can fool with my effects in here by double-clicking on this effects box right here to go ahead and work with the drop shadow, the bevel and emboss, as well as the texture, to try to really get this thing looking more like something realistic that's being placed on, not just a computer-generated image. All right. So our drop shadow, we could go ahead and bring more of a drop shadow out. All right. You can pull bevel and emboss. You could try some different effects to really get this looking like something that you're going to be sticking all these pictures to. What I'm going to then do is open my, here's my touch, so I'm going to copy that. That's going to go far right, so I'll hit Command T or transform, scale that down, bring him right there. I'm going to open my touched, which is on my desktop called Kozlowski touched image. I will select all, copy that, come over here, paste it, get its size the same. That's going to fall right to the left of that one. Then you'll get your original image, which would be the very, very first one without any alterations. That's going to fall to the left here. And then what you would be doing is taking these objects through whatever means you want to go about selecting them, whether you want to do the quick selection tool, or if you want to use one of these magnetic lassos or magic wand tools, you can go ahead and get these selected, and we're going to utilize these as if they were holding these on there. All right. Obviously, I have some more work to do on this one. I could go ahead and use my magic wand. If I can find it. Get rid of this data. Get rid of this data. Clean up around the edges. All right. Obviously, I'd have to clean that up a little further. But you guys get the idea. All right. You're starting to create almost like a virtual bulletin board. This is called the album assignment. You're taking the 3 images. All right. I will provide all the images. If you want to go after a different image, that's up to you. But the steps are touching it, colorizing it, placing all 3, placing them on this background. All right. So after you get done with the